Alright, live from the garage again. It's good to be back and get some work done on the plane. I'm sure I'll go over some of this with voiceover. I don't know how much I'll do in real time versus what I'll speed up and do voiceover with, but back from my trip. If you haven't seen it, I had a flying video, well, several days worth of flying. I got my tail wheel endorsement, had an amazing time. Go check that out if you haven't. But came home to some goodies. I got these two boxes in the mail, packaged together, all the way from Australia. We'll open these here in just a second. I also received the other bracket that I was missing for installing these lights, so that is awesome. And let's see what we got. All right. So this is the FLYLEDS light kit. I ended up spending about twice as much as I originally wanted to on it, but that's because I was originally going to get what was called the Works wingtip lights, and after talking to them, I changed my mind and went ahead and decided I wanted to do the essential lights for the wingtips, which is the strobes and nav lights, and I wanted to do the tail dragger max lights for my landing lights, which is why in previous videos you saw me cutting out the leading edges of the wings and why I've got these brackets for the wings. I don't know how much night flying I plan to do, but in the daytime I should be visible to pretty much everybody, and that's the plan. So we're going to go ahead and unbox all of this, kind of get it sorted out. I'm not really planning to start on the wingtip lights right now. I might get to them here sooner than later, I'm not sure. I know the first part has you trim these to match your wingtips before you build them up, and I haven't decided if I want to go ahead and do that now or not. I mean, I can pull them off the shelf and just get these sized and built, and I might do that at some point. But more importantly right now, I do want to get started on the tail dragger max lights so I can get them mocked up and mounted in the brackets and finish that whole wing assembly. Now the reason I have these right now, obviously the plane's a long ways away from needing them, but ultimately I want to try and get everything that's going into the wings, wiring and everything else done before I skin the bottom of the wings later on. There's still several more components that need to be purchased to achieve that goal. I need to get my pitot probe, the lines, the wiring for the pitot heater, my roll servo for the autopilot, and I think some temp probes, remote magnetometer, a few things like that. Some of them are just going to get installed after the fact because there's no way around it. I'm not going to buy some of those avionics right now, but a lot of that stuff I am going to buy before I close out the wings. And the lights just happen to be one of them. I decided to buy them because I thought it was going to be more affordable than the other options until I decided to up the size of the package. But don't get me wrong, this is still an extremely affordable package for aircraft lighting compared to the competitors, and if they look anything like they do online, it should be pretty awesome. We'll test some of it here later on, but for now let's just get on with the unboxing part. So there you can see one of the wingtip light circuit boards, and it looks like, yeah, they're all packaged in between all of the directions here. There we go. Alright, so now we got all of the directions. This is for building the Essentials kit, which is those wingtip lights. I'm not going to get to those just yet. I also got their ACM strobe controller board for the Dyna ACM system. I am planning to use this later, so we'll see how that ends up working out. But the board was cheap enough that I figured I'd just go ahead and get it now, so I had it all part of the kit for when I get the rest of this stuff later on. But won't need that right now. tail belly beacon, not telly, that's weird. I purchased one of their beacons. This is wired independent of the kit, so it's not going to sync up with the rest of the lights, but I want to put this just on the belly of the plane. I figure that's the more likely spot that I need to be concerned about. It's a low wing airplane. My visibility beneath me is going to be worse than above me. And the rest of my lights should be fairly visible from the side or the front, but if somebody was coming up from underneath or just taxiing around on the ground, I wanted to have a belly beacon. I didn't want one up on the tail or the back of the plane just because I have a giant bubble canopy and I don't want any of that light flashing into the canopy with me. So I got one of these. Obviously I can test it, but I won't be able to do anything with this until I get a fuselage. This is going to be the main star of the show for this work session, the tail dragger max lights. You can see that you got two frosted lights that are canted downward and then the rest of the lights pointed forwards. These are your landing lights. These ones are tilted forward so that when the wing is tilted up because the tail's on the ground, that gives you area lighting for taxiing. I expect they should work pretty good. It looks like a fairly good kit. So these instructions we're going to keep out and we'll go over it all, but let's finish unboxing the rest of this stuff and see what else we've got. These appear to be, yep, these are the PCBs for the tail dragger max lights. Looks like I have to cut out some small parts of the PCBs here, but we'll get to that in the directions later on. Very cool. Might as well go ahead and open up this other one. I know we're going to need them both here eventually. There's the other one. Really well made looking components. You can see the LEDs already on there. They don't look like much, but they're going to get lenses on them, and those should be incredibly bright. Set that off to the side. These look like mounting brackets for the lenses for the tail dragger max, so we'll set those off. And this is my PCB for the advanced control module. So this should just click into the rear ship port on the advanced control module, and then I can plug my lighting into it and allow me to control all the lighting through the Dynon system and circuitry. Very, very cool. I like it when stuff is packaged and meant to work together. Right, the rest of this we'll just set to the side. What else do we got in here? Lots of stuff. Ooh, those are some big resistors. Appear to be some small LEDs, some connectors, same thing. Oh, green, red. So these must be my nav lights. There's my belly beacon. Really nice and small package. It comes with a couple different mounting options. I'm going to go with the through skin option. So there's a grommet, and just the very lens part of this is going to stick through the skin on the bottom. It should be a nice clean setup. Very, very cool. I read ahead of time. This is going to get wired up to its own switch just to turn it on and off. You can program the flash sequence in this. I might play with that later to see what I like. Right now it's flashing, I think it's 70 flashes per minute is what it's set to. These other wires, obviously those are your power wires to turn it on and off. These wires are to program it and or sync it with another tail light belly beacon light. But since I only have the one, I'm not going to need these other than, like I said, reprogramming the flashes. And we can test this with a 9-volt battery later. I'll just have to run in and grab one. But for now, let's put that back in the bag. If I can get it back in the bag. They did an incredible job packing stuff. Okay, we don't need none of that right now. Alright, these look like lenses and mounting plates, some thermal paste. I think this is all for the tail dragger max lights, my landing lights. We'll see. Wow, I believe these are the strobes for the wingtip lights. Still can't get over the size of these resistors. Huge. I also ordered from them their wiring kit. So this comes with the connectors, which is going to plug into that PCB we saw a little while ago. They even gave me some heat shrink, very cool, and wire. So there should be enough wire here to do both wings and the tail. And yeah, that'll be handy to have. So we're not going to need that for a little while, but that stuff is going to get run in the wings, in those conduits you saw that I've got. So I don't think I need that, and I don't need that right now. So let's put the rest of this stuff back in here, and let's see what's in the other box. I think that goes with that. Okay. We've got a mounting bracket for my tail light. Oh, very cool. They gave us a FLYLEDS keychain, or FLYLEDS as they pronounce it. Massive heat sink for those landing lights. I don't know what it weighs. I mean, it's not as heavy as you'd think it is for as big as it is. I guess I could find out. I have a scale around here somewhere. Yeah, it's way over there. Might weigh them in a little bit. We'll see. But these are what's going to go in the wings. There's the other one. Alright. There we go. My tail light. We can test this with a 9-volt battery as well later on. I have the fairing to mount this in, but until I get it actually attached, I'm not going to mount it. I might drill the holes and get it mocked up just so I know it fits. Just going to lift that bag. There we go. Good looking light assembly, big heat sink on it. LEDs generate a lot of heat, a whole lot of heat, so decent sized heat sinks are a must, and it'll add to the long life of the LEDs. There, we got some notes on there, so those will stay together. Oh, stickers, because we all love stickers. You know I love stickers. Some business cards. Paul is who I was emailing with over there at FLYLEDS. Very, very helpful, very informative. The sticker's gonna go up on the toolbox somewhere. Put those over there for now. And these appear to be the lenses for those landing lights. So we'll set those off to the side right there. Alright, that box is empty. We'll throw some of this stuff back in there, and we'll get that off the bench. And I think these are, yeah, these should be for all of those lights as well. So all of this is somehow going to get turned into a working light. All right, we're on to voiceover Tim part. So in retrospect, now that I'm sitting here having built these, I did not need the soldering iron or all that other stuff you see over there, because these lights pretty much just clip together, screw together, and everything else. Overall, not bad. I think the directions say it takes about 20 minutes per light. If you've built a couple, probably. I think it took me about an hour total, give or take, for the pair of lights. That first part, there's these little 3D printed plastic spacers that have to get glued to the back of that mounting frame. And the glue's not to hold them structurally, it's just to hold them there so that when you assemble the whole thing, they're aligned and in place, and you put the screws through, and that's what ultimately holds it down. The directions mentioning using some acetone to melt the plastic together. I tried that right there at first, but the acetone wasn't having any effect. So, busted out the old super glue. And I just used the screws to keep them in alignment. Put a little dab of super glue on each one, spun them around, and then hit it with the activator, let them dry. Plenty strong enough to hold the spacers in place. Now I'm just cutting the second set free, and that's kind of how I just went through this whole thing. I read through all the directions, and I went through and read a set of directions again, did it to one light, did it to the next light, and just kept going back and forth. And I realize this video is a fairly long one for my build videos. I try and keep them around 10-15 minutes, but since we had the unboxing part and the live voice from the garage, it kind of ran a little long. But if anybody else is building these, hopefully they'll find this information useful. I'll throw you some hints here that I learned along the way of doing this. And now that I have done it, I probably will do those wingtip lights here sooner than later, maybe later today or tomorrow. It was kind of fun to build them. It'd be nice to get them all built and done and kind of out of the way. I just may not mount them to the wingtips anytime soon. So I'm attaching those cups that hold the lenses, and the clips that they go in, they feel like they snap in, but you got to look at them from the side, and it becomes pretty apparent whether they've snapped completely in or not. So you saw me looking at them and making sure they were all completely seated, but they should all lay nice and flat once you're in there and all the clips are seated in the notches. Now I'm adding the lenses. The lenses have a couple of notches that get caught by little plastic hooks in each of those cups, and this part's not too bad because you're just mounting them in the frames right now. They're not getting mounted over the top of any LEDs, so you really can't screw this up, other than you need to make sure that they are completely in there and seated fully. Now you got to break off those tabs on the PCBs so you can start getting those mounted. That angle piece that they mount to is just a solid machined piece of aluminum that gives you a wedge to mount them to, which points the taxi lights down for you when you're on the ground. I'm adding the heatsink compound to it. If you've ever built computers or anything like that, you don't add very much. You want a real thin smear of heatsink material on there, or of the compound. You should be able to see the base material through it. It should be that thin. So something I learned on this one is those cups, they get screwed to the circuit board, and they only go on one way, or if you flip them around it's still the same, but there are two little plastic pins on the bottom side that have to go into recesses on the circuit board on either side of the LEDs. Those are critically important that you get them in there. In my case, they didn't, on one of those cups, they didn't initially seat all the way like they should have, which caused the base of the cup to push up just a little bit and prevented me from pushing the lens in. Once I figured out what was holding it up, I was able to take the cup off, straighten it back out, and I got everything to seat correctly. But you want to make sure that those two little plastic pins definitely seat down into the circuit board where they go before you run them down with screws. So once the screws are in, you put these little centering plastic pieces in. That's that star washer looking thing right there. Keeps the lens centered in the cup. And unlike the other lenses, when you put them in, you want to make sure that you're using 4 fingers and even pressure to snap these down perfectly straight. You want both sides to click in at the same time. The directions warn you. You don't want one side to clip in and then the other, because this goes right on top of the LED and you could scrape off the coating on top of the LED and damage it. So this was probably the most stressful part of the whole thing. Once those were all in and done, you take the heat sink, smear on some more thermal paste, and now add the other lenses to the circuit board with the other LEDs. And you saw me flip it upside down. That was by far the easiest way to just look through the holes and make sure those little plastic pins I was telling you about before made it into their respective holes on the circuit board. And you just kind of wiggle them around and work it in until they all snap down just like they should. And now put the screws in, tighten it down. Don't go crazy with the tightening. Remember, it's just going into some plastic bits and a PCB. You don't want to crack anything. There's a little tiny connector cable. It's only supposed to go on one way, and the directions clearly tell you how to hook it up, but it connects between the main board and the taxi lights. You get those connected, you slide that into place, and put the remaining 2 screws in, and you have a completed light assembly. Put the diffuser lenses on top. They just snap on top of the taxi lights. And now I'm just verifying that I can apply 12 volts to this, because some of the smaller lights you only want to put 9 volts to them, like the belly beacon or the tail light. But these you can apply 12 volts to, so I break out my power supply. There you go, completed shot. Break out my bench power supply, and we're going to do a little live action testing here. There you go, super bright. There's another connector so you can do just the taxi lights, but I just want to make sure all the lights were working. I'll eventually wire up some pigtails and connectors for these before I install them. But that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, leave some comments and likes down below, and I will see y'all in the next one.